legal analyst and writer for Sports Illustrated, joining us once again on the show. Very happy to have him with us. It is Michael McCann. And Jim, if you could just get him up on the board there. I can't seem to put him up. Michael, how are you? Great to talk to you again.
Great to talk to you as well. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for taking the time, Mike.
We were talking about your story earlier this week about the legal hurdles of bringing back sports. And we've obviously spent a lot of time as a sports radio station talking about the possibilities of bringing back sports and how we all want that to be the case at some point. In your mind, when you were writing about it this week, what do you see right now is, from a legal perspective, the biggest problem out of all the issues that might exist for getting players back and getting games going again?
I think the biggest problem is going to be gathering restrictions, where different states and cities have limited number of people that can get together for events. And if this pandemic plays out in a way that is sort of erratic, where maybe it's bad for a month and then maybe it's worse again several months later, it creates a lot of unpredictability. And we know that a number of communities in Massachusetts, for example, there could not be a Patriots, Red Sox, Bruins, or Celtics game right now, even if there aren't spectators there. Now, that could change, and hopefully it does, but Massachusetts isn't unique. And to have a schedule where teams are going across the country to play games, especially if this virus is going to affect communities at different times, that's going to make it hard to have things return to the way they were. Now, that doesn't mean they can't do something else. Maybe, and as has been discussed, have them play in one facility, things like that. But that's a very different arrangement than what we're used to. So that would be the biggest issue. The second, I think, would be figuring out the money. And that's going to involve the union and the league getting together to figure out how revenue is shared, who suffers the loss. And then there's networks and sponsors that have a voice in this too. So I think the money stuff is complicated but can be worked out. The real issue is going to be the public health component.
Mike, do you agree that the NBA and the NFL are going to want to get back as soon as possible based on the type of money with the TV money, when you just strictly talk about TV money?
Yeah, so I definitely think they want to get back as soon as possible with the caution that if they go back too early and some player or referee has, it could be a disaster, right? Because then it would be, well, we started too early. Then they're going to have to postpone things even further back. So they have to do it in a way that the testing is good enough, certain enough, and it's done in a way that sort of provides certainty that the virus won't spread. Because if that happens, the big story is going to be they rushed too back. They're making the situation worse for everyone. So I definitely think they want to get back as soon as possible. And look, we all want sports to come back, right?
Sure.
It's part of our jobs. It's just part of our livelihood, but they have to do it in a way that's not going to cause more harm than good.
We're talking to Michael McCann. Do the leagues have any responsibility when it comes to keeping the players, I guess, healthy, if that's the way to put it? Let's say, as you said, it could be a disaster if they come back and someone does end up having it and getting ill or seriously ill. Would anyone be able to come back to the league and say, this is your fault? You caused this. You brought us back too soon.
So I think that could happen, but I think the league is going to preempt that by making sure that whatever is the arrangement the union has signed off on, just to prevent that risk that if they come back, and they will obviously at some point, and God forbid somebody has it and spreads it, that whatever arrangement the union and the league come up with, ensure that the league isn't going to be sued or the team isn't going to be sued, that they accept that as a risk of coming back.
You mentioned television contracts as well and some of the TV money and sponsorship dollars. Do any of the TV partners have a right to say, hey, you're not playing your games, we're out? We're not paying you, or we're going to, even maybe worse than that, say we're done with our deal? Is there any sort of way to cancel things on the league from their TV partners? And would that maybe be one of the pressures the league feels to get back out there and play?
I definitely think it's a pressure. A lot of these contracts have force majeure clauses, which basically say if there's some act of God, some pandemic, terrorist attack, something really awful and disruptive and unpredictable and out of the control of all the parties, that parties have an opportunity to exit the contract or seek offsets from it. Similarly, there's usually an impossibility clause which says if the circumstances are such that games can't be played and the contracts can't be satisfied, the other side has to give up money. Now, whether they're going to use those clauses, whether there's mandatory arbitration in those clauses where it doesn't go to court but goes to arbitration or mediation, that remains to be seen. But I think television networks are going to be cautious because they don't want to lose the relationship and they don't want to see their rival networks enter the story and take a TV contract away. But if this goes on a while, they're going to lose a fortune, and they're expecting that revenue. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think if this goes on a while, the TV networks are going to consider action, and they probably will have the right to do so under the contracts.
What do you think's the first sport that's going to be back, Mike? You personally?
I'm going to say baseball, if I had to guess.
Really?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think baseball. There's less proximity between the players. Obviously, there's some. I mean, when somebody slides into home plate, but I think there's a little bit more physical separation between the players, and also I think there's a sign that they're kind of working well together because the league and the players have signed an agreement for whatever the 2020 season is going to be. It seems like they're moving at a faster clip than the other leagues. I think the NBA really is pushing hard to get back, so maybe we'll see the NBA. But my guess is based on what we know now, Major League Baseball.
Okay.
We're talking with Michael McCann on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline about some of the legal hurdles of getting back. If we could just rewind for a second, you had said that some of the group gathering restrictions in local places, whether it be state rules or municipalities that have those rules, those might still exist. If they exist in some places and not others, and I know that it had been mentioned before that Major League Baseball players had sort of bargained already that they weren't going to be playing where there are restrictions. Do you think that everyone will be eager to just sort of pick up and go to a place where they can get away with it, so to speak, sort of like what we're seeing with UFC going to some tribal lands in California to avoid the rules? It could be for baseball or for any other sport just moving to a different state. Do you see that as one of their ways around it?
Yeah, at least initially, that would be one way around it, to play in some venue that's in a location that hasn't imposed a gathering restriction, or the gathering restriction wouldn't be a problem in terms of having a game without spectators. That would seem like a sensible first approach, but we're going to see people object. Some players are going to say, are they going to leave their families for 4 months? I mean, how does the quarantine part of that work? Do they play a whole season? Do they try it for a month? There are a lot of complications to that.
What if the one superstar on that team says, "I'm not doing it"? Yeah.
Then I think it collapses. So I think that's the big problem, right? All it takes is one.
Yeah. I
Right.
think it's going to be a miracle to get everybody on the same page with this thing. And do you think you're going to quarantine people? And you're not going to be able to see your family for 4 months. Too many people have too many things going on within, personal issues within their family to say, I'm not going to be available for 4 months. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, and some of those, like you said, the superstar, that's the person that can kind of,
LeBron,
if he's not paid, right? Like not being paid to him is one thing. For the guy who's just barely on the roster, it's a different consideration.
All right, Michael McCann, you can read him in Sports Illustrated, also an attorney and director of the Sports and Entertainment Law Institute at the University of New Hampshire. Michael, always appreciate talking to you. Thank you.